services isn't making themselves redundant. Really interesting to me because it's always, if you're good service, you should be just working yourself right out of services. No one will need you anymore. So I'm really looking forward to hearing you. This will be presented by Faye Jackson and Monique Diplock. Faye Jackson is General Manager of Inclusion at Flourish Australia, is also Deputy Commissioner with the New South Wales Mental Health Commission, a National Consumer Member and a Carer Reference Group member. She started work in mental health as a volunteer. Her first paid work was as a peer worker in a public mental health system. Monique Diplock is a lived experience expert, has a certification ID, number 4 in mental health, peer work, a diploma in mental health, is enrolled in a Bachelor of Science Psychology degree, and aims to work in trauma-informed care. She's an expert by experience and emeritus member of the Flourish Australia Community Advisory Council. So I'll invite you to come up and give your picture.
Thank you. I'll just correct a little bit in my bio. I'm a member of the National Consumer and Carer organisation. I've even forgot what it's called now. Group, but I'm a lived experience representative, not a carer representative there. So we're from Flourish Australia, and we'll just get started. So first of all, we'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that we're meeting on today, and pay our respects to elders past and present, and we hope that the lives of people in the future, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in the future, will be a great deal better than it has been in the past. We'd also like to pay our respects to people with a personal lived experience of mental health issues who are in the room today, those of us who have gone before us and on whose shoulders we stand to continue the fight to improve mental health services and just to improve the community so that we don't need to be using mental health services. And we'd also like to acknowledge carers in the room and family members and all of those who care. So I figure that must be all of you, otherwise you wouldn't be here today. So Monique is actually going to speak first of all. So this presentation is called Making Services Redundant. I would just like to clarify that before we go on. In conversation with my Aboriginal sisters and brothers, they have explained to me that Aboriginal services are a part of the community, and the community is a part of the Aboriginal service. And so they like to be able to make the service redundant in that they don't need it anymore, but they like to be able to come and go, and that the service is always there for them, and they are there for the service. Then they like to go back in and give and support where they can, and perhaps that's the model that all services should be pinned on. So redundant in the sense of need, but or ever present and an integral part of the community.
Hi everyone. So I'll just say a little bit about my story and then some things that I think would help services make themselves redundant, and then I'll give back to Faye. So I was born into a family with 2 older brothers. My parents split before I was 1. A couple of years later, I got a stepfather, a little brother, and 4 stepbrothers. I was always very nervous as a child. For example, I would beg to go on school camps and excursions. My mum, who was on a single parent pension, would find money, pay for it, and then the morning of, I would wake up with a stomach bug or a cold and have to be kept home. Due to lack of awareness at the time, this became common throughout my life. As a young girl, I was continuously sexually abused for a long period that saw my mum become a single parent again. We were isolated from the family and friends we've become attached to. We were isolated from people who couldn't believe that he could do that. We wrapped ourselves in a cocoon. My mum, my three brothers, and myself. Mum put walls up around us, and she wanted to protect us. With an attempted kidnapping on my little brother from his father's side, who could blame her? She just did what she needed to do. My schooling was good for a while. In year 8, they were talking about putting me up into intermediate levels in year 9. However, that's when the effects of my trauma started taking over my life. I was angry, self-destructive, and so were my friends. At the time, it seemed fun to argue with anybody and everybody who looked at me the wrong way. Once I was caught self-harming at school. Later, on the first day of year 9, my friend and I were called into the office and given a letter home where we were offered a spot in the school's life skills class. It was a special ed class that was aimed for troubled and at-risk kids. We were promised to learn everything the same as the mainstream kids. We didn't have to attend classes or sit exams. We'd still get our certificate at the end, but the only difference would be our grade would be average, where everybody else would get a proper grade. It seemed like a good payoff, but instead of what we were promised, we were put in the corner of a school with laminated books to work off our high amount of detentions. When I brought work home, it was the same as my brothers in the 2nd grade. They really let us down. Skills they should have taught me in high school, I still struggle with today. Even though I became angry, I am not extremely bitter about this, but I still can't laminate a book to save my life, but I gave my passion for writing and music. If you spend time with me, you'll know that sometimes I disappear. It's probably because I'm in the bathroom with my headphones on, warding off an anxiety attack. My main goal in life was and still is to be an author. I had big plans to own my own mansion and buy my mum anything she wanted by the age of 22. And then I would have my family set and we would be happy and trouble-free. Instead, at 22, after more self-destruction and suicide attempts, I was eventually diagnosed with anxiety, depression, and later borderline personality disorder. This was when I couldn't leave home without a bucket or knowing the way to the bucket aisle in any shop that I went to. The positive side of this is now I know that you can usually buy a bucket for about $1, and the best type of rubbish to throw up in is a chip packet. Writing has always been my main plan. I prefer to write fiction over non-fiction, but lately have been toying with ideas of how I would write my mum's story or even my own. I tend to just enjoy words, and even as I'm working towards a career in mental health, if writing somehow started to pay, I would be over the moon. Some things I have achieved with the support of Flourish and other services. I was supported through my major anxiety by helping learn strategies to work through it myself. Flourish helped me navigate the public transport around my town, which is horrible. They supported me in exercise and healthy living, which is still an ongoing work in progress, but I still have the tools there to do that by myself. Flourish and other services helped me create boundaries with my family and friends, which is also a work in progress, but the strategies are very helpful. Flourish helped me learn my passion for mental health by suggesting I give a mental health course at TAFE a go. It sparked a flame that has led me to complete a Cert 4 in peer work, my diploma in mental health, and now I'm studying psychology at university. Through the TAFE in Tari, where I'm from, I was able to be on an organising committee for a day of action against sexual assault, which was a completely empowering experience. Through Flourish, I've been able to attend various empowerment workshops that have helped and changed how I thought about myself and the world around me. I was a part of the inaugural Community Advisory Council, where through meetings and focus groups I always felt validated and heard, even if my opinions didn't align with what the majority was saying. At a roadshow in Newcastle a couple of years ago, Faye and the former CEO of Flourish called me a leader and inspiring. For a moment, I wondered if they were talking about the person behind me. I'm not a leader. I blend in, don't I? I was once told by the presenters of an empowerment group that I was courageous. This caused me to cry like a baby. I always heard this from my mum, but she's pretty biased. I never thought it showed on the outside. I mean, I rarely feel brave. I started hearing a lot of these things from teachers and people that I looked up to. It made me stop and think, why are they saying this to me? These things are things I say about my idols. Then I thought about my idols. Why do I admire them? They're all brave. They stand out, and as far as I'm aware, they push against something almost every day as well. It was when I started using my anxiety as a driver instead of an impediment. So now I'll just say a couple of things that I think will help services make themselves redundant. One thing is that nobody wants to rely on services. We want to do these things ourselves. We want to live independently. We need assistance in finding ways to do that in our own journey. There is no one size that fits all. We want a helping hand, not another bad habit. If we don't move on from services can become stagnant or too routine, which is as equally as unhelpful as the bad habits we're trying to move on from. I saw a stat the other day that said 1.1 billion people in the world live with a mental health issue. I think that's probably pretty low, but if we don't aim to get people standing on their own, how are we supposed to help the rest of the 1.1 billion people? Some tools that I think would be helpful would be no time limits. When I signed up for my support worker at Flourish, they gave me 2 years. 3 or 4 years later was when I was signed off. We accomplished a lot, but it's important to remember that mental health is not linear. I think it should be made easier for clients to return if they are in crisis, rather than having to go through the entire referral process again. It would be great if resources were easier to find, like on our own type thing. Timing is key. I think it's important to make sure that when the ties are cut, the person is not in crisis or high stress. The signing off needs to be a positive experience. Be gentle. It's scary out there when we're suddenly on our own, even though that the persons with lived experience are equipped with the tools to get them through, and you know they have the ability to use them. There will be a period of panic where they will completely forget everything they've been taught. And I think it's important that for follow-ups as well, whether that be fortnightly, monthly, every 6 months, a year, just to see how they're going. In final, the trauma I've experienced in my life has been uninvited. The struggles I have experienced have been unwelcome. My philosophy is that I wouldn't have gone through what I have gone through for no reason. I felt for a very long time the reason I went through that is to help others. In my mind, the commonality between writing, studying, and doing things like THEMS and the Community Advisory Council is doing exactly that. Using my adversity to make a difference in the future of people who might find themselves on a path similar to my own. I couldn't have done any of this without the services I have used. I couldn't have done any of this without my team believing in me, entrusting me, and empowering me with the tools to work on my own. The future is scary. If you would have asked me a year ago if I would be visiting Adelaide for 5 days talking to a room full of people, I would have told you that you were the crazy one. It would never have happened, and it would never have happened. But here I am in Adelaide in front of a room full of people talking about things that some of the people I care about most don't even know the full extent of. Maybe if someone tells me that this time next year I'll be on safari in Africa, it might have the same effect. If I have to talk about the future, I think of one word: I hope. I hope to write most days. I hope to get through uni. I hope to one day visit Portugal. I hope to keep strong relationships with my family and friends. I hope my pets are happy and healthy. I hope to stay brave. I hope to continue leading. I hope to have many things, but mostly I hope to continue using my anxiety as a driving force, my story to inspire people to realize that they can also reach a point in their recovery where they too can walk empowered and enfranchised with the strategies that they built with the guidance of holistic services. Thank you. Okay.
I think Monique just demonstrated it. I don't even know whether I need to say anything. I suppose I will. But Monique is amazing, and I love this is something that we're all learning together, that vulnerability is a leadership quality, a strong, important leadership quality, and it's our vulnerability that connects us and brings us together, and our vulnerability means we're strong. If we're here and we're working together, we're making a difference, and we're using our vulnerability in service to others, then we're strong, and we're connecting, and we're bridges to hope and the future, and we're all leaders, and you certainly are.
Thank you.
So I guess I'll do this though. So services focus on being sustainable, and yes, I know being in one of the executive team on a service, certainly we do aim at keeping that service sustainable. We need good governance, we need to use our resources properly. This is death by suicide as far as writing, but nowadays people take photos all the time to remind them because they've got bad memories, and so I've got lots of writing, but if you email me we can send it to you. The writing isn't important unless that's the way you take things in, okay? So services obviously need to be honest and transparent. They need to invest well in their staff. All good services are properly co-designed from the very beginning. The one question that co-design should start with is, what are the questions that we need to ask? Very often the wrong questions are being asked, so the wrong answers are reached and the wrong services are designed. So we need to utilise best practice, absolutely, but a service to be sustainable and to be very good for the people accessing that service must not allow best practice to be the enemy of innovation and leadership. So good services aim to keep the service sustainable because we want good services there for other people who need them, and in Aboriginal communities, which I think is probably how we should do it in all communities, be there for people to come, so that like Monique can go back and say to other people there, well, this is what I did, and you could do this too, and be that hope and that leader. But services need to aim to make themselves redundant in people's lives, individual people's lives, in that they should be working in such a way that is way beyond the bottom line that seems to be the accepted line of recovery services. I know that's pretty hard-hitting and in your face, but recovery has been watered down. The word recovery has been colonised and is not being used appropriately, and we are not working really in a way of recovery so that people reach their full citizenship, so that people are engaged in, belong in, are connected with their roots, and they have the right to be responsible. I have lived experience. My right to be responsible was taken from me as far as employment. I had my first job when I was 40, and my right to be responsible for my children was almost taken from me, but I ran interstate a few times to keep my children. And my children and my responsibilities are what keep me alive. I think about suicide every day, but I won't do it because of my responsibilities. And it's wonderful to have responsibilities. And there's a wonderful man that's working with us in our social citizenship, and he's just been through a terrible, terrible time that was very public on television. And medical model or other services would say that man would not be able to fulfill the things that his family needed him to do. But he did. He is responsible. Making services redundant does not mean we should cut services. That's the big powers would say, well, if we make them redundant, that's where we can save some money. I don't mean that at all. But we must not become uncomfortably comfortable. So many services reach a low bottom line of what they do to support people. It's low. It's what we expect of ourselves becomes low. What our family expects of us become low. What services and what the community expects of us becomes low. We can't do much. We're not capable. That's just not true. We want the right to be responsible. We want the right to have opportunity. We want the right for you to not make your living on us not achieving our full citizenship. Every single person in this room today, everyone, needs to claim their leadership in being loud about breaking the ceiling of recovery, moving beyond that, so that each one of us has the right to be responsible and the right to have all of the roles in their lives that they want, that other people without mental health issues have. I have many roles, but so many people who are kept at a low level in services have one role, and that's, I hate the term, service user or consumer or patient. Services need to aim much higher. They have no right to settle on that uncomfortable comfort, because we don't want to be victims of services comfort. There's many more slides there, and you're welcome to have them if you email me, but I think really Monique said it all in her story, and it's those stories that connect us and that bring about real change. Using our stories, that's what real leadership is. So, thank you.